All right, let's move on to 8B. Steve Posey's been here for hours. A resolution declaring the intent of the City of Colorado Springs to issue a multifamily housing revenue bonds, its revenue bonds, to finance the construction of a senior affordable multifamily housing facility known as Atrium at Austin Bluffs.
Good afternoon, President Scorman, members of the City Council, Steve Posey, excuse me, HUD Program Manager and Community Development Division Manager for the city. We are here this afternoon to introduce a preliminary inducement resolution to issue private activity bonds for a specific project. And before we talk about that project specifically, I did want to just take a small step back just to remind everybody kind of what the purpose of private activity bonds is, and one of the prior council actions that City Council took in 2018 to carry forward a portion of our private activity bond allocation from that year specifically for affordable multifamily rental housing. So just as a refresher, the city receives an annual allocation of private activity bonds each year from the state. The city is what's known as a conduit issuer of PAB. So unlike some other forms of municipal debt, this one does not obligate the city to any debt service around these bonds or result in any cost to the city as a result of being an issuer of these bonds. Typically, these bonds are sold in a private placement. It's most likely in this case that they will be purchased by a bank that is also providing financing for this particular project. And the proceeds from that sale of the bonds are what will be used to finance the actual construction of the project. Multifamily rental housing is one of the most common uses of private activity bonds here in the state of Colorado. As a state, we are now one of the top 10 issuers of this particular type of financing across the country, and specifically for multifamily housing. In 2017, which is the most recent year that some totals are available for bond issuance, the state of Colorado alone issued over $500 million worth of private activity bonds. The recent allocations for the city, in 2018, the city received $24.2 million. In 2019, that figure went up to a little less than $24.9 million. Those figures are based on population, and as the population continues to grow, I anticipate that we will continue to see a little bit more and more of that bond allocation going forward. On August 28th of last year, the City Council adopted a resolution to carry forward the 2018 allocation for the purpose of financing residential facilities, multifamily affordable housing being one of them. And so that's the item that's being introduced this afternoon will set aside a portion of roughly $8 million of that allocation for a specific project. The way that developers apply in order to receive a commitment from the city to issue bonds, where we have they would apply through the Community Development Division for that financing. Those applications are being accepted while the private activity bond allocation is available. And we are working on a process for having a complete set of policies and procedures that would cover that application, what the review criteria are going to be, and what those application requirements are. Some of the specifics of the resolution that you have in front of you in your packets. These are a couple of things that I wanted to point out about that specifically. This is a requirement of the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority that the local governmental body issue a preliminary inducement resolution for these bonds. That resolution identifies a specific project to be financed with those bond proceeds. It awards a portion of the 2018 allocation to this project. The specific project that we're going to be talking about is the Atrium at Austin Bluffs. As we get a little bit, the next slide or the one after that, Lee Patke from Greshio Housing is here this afternoon. And I've asked him to come up just for a few minutes just to give council some brief information about the project, specifics of that project. To return to the resolution for a minute, there are some specific conditions which must be met prior to the bond issuance taking place. The development team in this case has asked for a not to exceed amount of up to $8 million. The resolution also establishes an end date for those conditions to be met prior to the bond issue. And it also allows the developer to begin incurring costs which can be reimbursed by the proceeds of the bond sale. So having said all of that, I am going to ask Lee to come up for just a sec and speak to the project itself.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lee Patke. I'm Executive Director of Greshio Housing. This photo before you makes this look like an expansive piece of property. It is not. It is 1.14 acres on the corner of Templeton Gap and Austin Bluffs. Council participated in discussion of this parcel of land in March of last year so that Greshio could acquire this property for a public benefit of producing affordable housing for our community. This is a new venture for us. We have spent 29 years developing housing through a different model using different sources of funds, oftentimes acquiring and renovating 60, 80, 120-year-old buildings that when you think of the stereotypical vision of what affordable housing is, that's what you think of. We have worked tirelessly for really our whole lifespan, but over the last 8 to 10 years to position ourselves to be here today. No longer are we satisfied with taking the least of the properties in our community and making them just above the threshold to be habitable. There's a different way to do affordable housing, and we are proudly on that stage today. The Affordable Housing Tax Credit Program is the primary way that new construction, affordable housing, is secured, developed, and guaranteed for the next generation of people in our community that have low incomes. It takes competence and it takes confidence to draw down tax credit dollars and to get tax credit awards. We are very happy to be here today. We thank the city for their support, City Council for your support in acquiring the land, the mayor for his specific support of this project and getting tax credits awarded. Our local partners from Silver Key, Independence Center, Invita Cares, all that have contributed to initial design for universal design of this property, the elements that are going to be provided within it, and at least the verbal commitment to be partners in this project for many years to come. We're also working with a local foundation currently for a, lack of a better term, a bridge loan to get us through the pre-development costs between now and closing, that their name will bring considerable weight to this project after they meet in a couple of short weeks. So the basics on the project: 1.14 acres, 54 bedrooms, all senior housing, 62 plus. Most tax credit projects you hear about that are 4% projects are 60% or less of area median income. Through some great professional assistance through the Medici Group, which is our development consultant, and some creative financing, we have reserved 6 units at 30% of area median income, 6 units at 40%, 21 at 50%, and 21 at 60% of AMI. We're appropriately zoned on an infill lot, and our current concept design, which we'll continue to work on, has 30% more parking for this age group than is required. We have other details of the project are all very resident responsive and resident focused around connectivity, socialization, the latest in security and internet access and all of those things. So we appreciate council hearing this again. We are very proud to bring this project to our community. Very few projects have been awarded tax credits in the last 12 to 15 years in Colorado Springs, and we intend, there may be some one-off projects here and there, we intend to be before council and to be before the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority regularly for the foreseeable future. This will be our method of doing business. We're not going to miss any opportunities, but we are committed to being the affordable housing provider in Colorado Springs.
Great. Any, Wayne?
Thank you
Questions
for
Lee?
bringing this forward. When I was in the decade I was on the Colorado Springs Housing Authority, we used this tool an awful lot. I'm glad to see it being revivified, resurrected, raised from the dead, or whatever it is. As we know, the legislature has defined the lack of affordable housing as a menace, and we need to address this, and I appreciate you bringing this forward. I think this ought to go in consent.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, except I would say that there were neighborhood, or there was neighbor opposition last year, so.
You think there would be this time?
At least to give the
For
opportunity.
the bonds, okay. Okay, Steve, anything else about this? Or?
I just wanted to echo one thing that Lee had said, and that actually Councilmember Williams also referred to. This is a terrific project that is coming out of Colorado Springs. And that's something, because of the local nature of this project, the local partners, the local financing that's going into it, the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority has really kind of sat up and taken notice. And as a result of projects like this and the commitment that the city is making to encouraging affordable housing developments of this type, I am a lot more optimistic about us seeing more tax credit awarded projects in the years coming forward.
That's great.
So,
yeah, and Lee, thank you for stepping up and doing this. It's a great
And
project.
Steve, did you have a representative of bond council here today?
oh, yes, actually I
Would you like to
did.
introduce our representative from QTAC
We do.
Rock?
We have Fred Marienthal from QTAC
Okay.
Rock. He is the city
Right.
bond counsel.
Okay,
And we also have Josh Russell from the Medici Group, who is the development team's tax credit consultant. So if there were
Okay.
any other questions that of a more technical nature, either of those would be happy to answer them.
okay. Any other questions? David?
Just one comment to the whole group. The fact that you are able to construct 6 units at 30% of AMI is phenomenally good, and 6 at 40%. That is seeking a standard for affordable housing above and beyond. So kudos.
Can
Yeah, Lee, why don't you comment on that? Yeah.
I'd like to comment on that. The reason that is because we're a local organization that is committed to this community. There are many developments at 4% deals that are coming in and are 100%, 60% of AMI. 100% of those units are 60% or less of AMI. This is our mission. We're committed to being here, and we're committed to the benefit of the community.
Yeah, that's great.
Can I ask?
Tom?
Lee, again, for those that may be watching, and they may not really understand what AMI means, can you give an example of, what that means in terms of income that an individual or a family would have, and then what 30% of that is to make them eligible for these 6 units?
Sure. The gold standard when we talk about AMIs and income levels is a family of 4. What is a family of 4's
Right.
area median income? That means the middle, out of all the incomes of all the families in our community, what is the middle one? Not the average, but the middle.
Right.
The most recent stats that have come out indicated we had a healthy jump in the last year from $77,700 for a family of 4 to an area median income of $81,400. So imagine a family of 4 living on 30% of that. That's a little over $24,000 a year.
Correct.
I would challenge that it's difficult for a single person to live on $24,000 a year and
Yes.
live independently. So that is who we are serving.
So a family of 4 that, say, was making $25,000 a year would be eligible for one of these 6 homes?
No, this is senior
Correct?
housing.
Senior housing, yeah.
This is true. So
Yeah.
our typical ones will not be families of
Families.
4. I started out with that sort of the standard in how we talk
Yeah.
about the conversations.
So there'll probably
An
be at most
individual-
families of 2, right?
An individual, I believe it's roughly around $51,000 for a single person as the area median income. So that's a single person living on $15,000 a year.
Would be eligible for one of these 6 units?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's helpful for people that are watching, wondering, whether they've got an older sibling or a mother and father that, would be eligible for this kind of housing.
Correct. And we try to hit every one of those income levels up to those that may still have a modest but more reasonable income of 50 or 60% of AMI.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, great, thanks so much, and we look forward to many more of these coming forward, so appreciate it.